A man is trapped inside a cave, and the monster guarding the exit is his best chance of survival. Not because the monster is friendly, because it's the only one who can move the boulder, sealing them both inside. The monster is a one-eyed giant. It has already eaten 2 of his men, alive in front of the rest. The man's plan is insane. Get the giant drunk, blind him with a burning stake while he sleeps, then escape by clinging to the underside of its own sheep as they're let out to graze. It works. This is not the strangest thing that happens to this man in the next 10 years. He will anger a god so badly that it will personally hunt him across an entire sea. He will be turned into an old beggar in his own home. He will visit the land of the dead and speak with people who died decades earlier. Almost everyone knows his name, Odysseus. Almost nobody has actually read his story. Here's the first surprise. The Odyssey isn't about the Trojan War. The war is already finished by the time the story begins. 10 years of brutal siege at Troy ended by one final trick. A massive wooden horse, filled with Greek soldiers, offered as a fake peace gift and dragged inside the city walls by the Trojans themselves. The plan belongs to Odysseus. Not brute strength, not an army, just one man's talent for deception convincing an entire city to destroy itself. Troy falls in a single night. The war is over. Odysseus, king of a small island called Ithaca, should be sailing home to his wife and infant son. Instead, his journey home takes another 10 years. The Odyssey isn't the story of the war. It's the story of everything that goes wrong afterward. The real story begins with an insult. After escaping the Cyclops' cave, Odysseus makes one mistake. He shouts his real name back at the blinded giant, taunting him. The giant, it turns out, is the son of Poseidon, god of the sea. Poseidon doesn't forgive this. For the rest of the journey, he personally sabotages Odysseus at every turn. Storms, shipwrecks, detours, delays, turning what should be a short voyage home into a decade-long punishment. This is the core of the entire epic. One furious god versus one man just trying to get home. What follows reads less like a war story and more like a fevered dream. On one island, the witch goddess Circe turns half of Odysseus' crew into pigs, literally, with a single touch of her wand. To save them, Odysseus has to resist her magic himself, then spend an entire year on her island before he can convince her to turn his men back and let them leave. Later, his ship sails past the sirens, creatures whose song is so irresistible that every sailor who hears it steers straight into the rocks and dies. Odysseus has himself tied to the mast, ordering his crew to plug their own ears with wax, so he alone can hear the song and survive. At one point, on Circe's advice, Odysseus sails to the literal edge of the underworld and speaks with the ghosts of dead soldiers, his own mother, and a blind prophet who warns him exactly how his journey will end. He is receiving instructions from the dead about how to survive being alive. Somewhere between 2 narrow cliffs, Odysseus is forced into an impossible choice. On one side, Scylla, a monster with 6 heads, each capable of snatching a sailor whole off the deck of a passing ship. On the other, Charybdis, a massive whirlpool that can swallow the entire ship if it sails too close. There is no safe path. Odysseus chooses to sail closer to Scylla, sacrificing 6 of his men, snatched screaming off the deck, rather than risk losing the entire ship to the whirlpool. It's one of the coldest, most calculated decisions in the entire epic. Not victory, just the least catastrophic loss. Eventually, Odysseus ends up shipwrecked alone on the island of the goddess Calypso. She isn't a monster. She falls in love with him, offers him immortality, godhood, and eternity together on a paradise island. He says no. For 7 years, he stays anyway, essentially a prisoner of a goddess who refuses to let him leave, while his wife and son wait, not knowing if he's alive or dead. It's only when the gods intervene, ordering Calypso to release him, that Odysseus is finally allowed to build a raft and continue home. Even paradise, in this story, is a trap if it isn't the place you actually belong. When Odysseus finally reaches Ithaca, 20 years after he left, almost no one is waiting for a happy reunion. His wife, Penelope, has spent years fending off 108 suitors, men who have taken over his own palace, demanding she remarry and give up his kingdom. His son, an infant when Odysseus left, is now a grown man who barely remembers his father's face. Odysseus doesn't walk in as a hero. Disguised by the gods as an old beggar, he sneaks into his own home unrecognized, forced to watch strangers eat his food and court his wife, before he can find the right moment to reveal who he really is. His own dog recognizes him instantly and dies moments later, having waited its entire life just to see him again. The story ends in a bloodbath. Odysseus reveals himself by stringing an impossible bow that none of the suitors could even bend, then turns it on the men who tried to steal his life while he was gone. All 108 of them die in his own great hall. Even his wife doesn't immediately believe it's really him. She tests him with a detail only the real Odysseus could know: the design of their marriage bed, built around a living olive tree still rooted in the ground. Only then does she finally believe her husband is home. For nearly 3,000 years, this story has survived as one of the foundational texts of Western literature, endlessly translated, adapted, and reimagined. But strip away the reputation, and what's left is stranger, darker, and more human than most people expect. A story about a man so desperate to get home that he says no to godhood itself, and a homecoming that ends not in celebration, but in blood on the floor of his own house. Almost everyone knows the name Odysseus. Almost nobody knows what actually happens to him.